leaning forward with the state of Louisiana in advance of Hurricane Delta, but also in its aftermath, they would stick with us. And so we appreciate his prompt attention to the request and the assistance that he's already made available to us. And I'm expecting that pretty soon we're going to have official notification that that declaration has been signed. As you probably know, Hurricane Delta is currently forecasted to make landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane in Louisiana on Friday afternoon. That means that by Friday morning, conditions will be deteriorating rapidly. And so what I'm trying to impart to the people of Louisiana is that by the end of the day Thursday, you need to be where you intend to be as you ride out the storm, and you need to be postured however you need to be postured. So do all the work that you need to do to fortify your position to get ready. Make sure you have your supplies on hand, and if you have any question about what that should look like, go to getagameplan.org. And it will help you. And again, we are in a COVID environment, and so that list of things that you need and some of the things that you need to do will be different this year than it's been in the past. While the track has shifted a little bit west, it is still true that the overwhelming majority of the coast of Louisiana remains in the cone. So please don't get too fixated on the center line of the track. And in fact, a third of storms actually make landfall outside of the cone. So nobody should get too fixated on any of this, but we should all be aware that the storm is coming, that it's going to be a very serious storm. Delta is forecasted to be a hurricane in as far north as central Louisiana too. We saw this with Hurricane Laura. And so we're not just speaking to Louisiana residents in the coastal area of our state. We're speaking to everybody in the state of Louisiana today. And in fact, we don't expect the hurricane to become a tropical storm until just about the time it exits northeast Louisiana. So everyone should be ready. At this time, a hurricane watch has been issued for just about the entire Louisiana coast. No one should let their guard down. And with a lot more specific and detailed information, I'm going to ask Ben to come up and give you a briefing. Now, none of you called him back up for any questions yesterday. So I'm going to ask you, if you've got questions, go ahead and do it when he finishes speaking, because I want to make sure that the information that he and the National Weather Service has is very clearly articulated to the people of Louisiana. So if you've got a question of Ben at the conclusion of his remarks, please ask him those questions. I'll come back to the podium on the back side of his presentation.
Thank you, Governor. Again, we're here to talk a little bit about Hurricane Delta. Again, we're looking to see it forecast. Let's talk a little bit about what we have on there. First of all, so here's the situation overview with Hurricane Delta. Again, my name is Benjamin Schott. I'm with the National Weather Service out of New Orleans. We're expected Delta to make landfall as we move into the day on Friday, as the Governor mentioned. The window for preparations is going to be closing as we go through the end of the day tomorrow. The first sign of the tropical storm force winds may come in earlier on the day on Friday. There's a little bit of uncertainty exactly with the track and exactly with the intensity. There always is just a small amount. As the Governor mentioned, a third of the landfalls happen outside of the actual cone. So again, as he had mentioned, I don't want anyone to fixate on the exact cone or the exact center line. Understand, if you are under watches, if you are under warnings, you are at risk, and you need to prepare properly for those threats. Some of those threats, as you see there with the list, are life-threatening storm surge along the coast. Obviously, hurricane force winds we saw with Laura can do an amazing amount of damage. And as the Governor mentioned, these will be going well inland. They won't be happening just at the coastline itself. And then there will be also the possibility in some heavy bands with heavy rainfall as well as possible flash flooding and river flooding as Delta moves on shore during the day on Friday and departs the state on Saturday. Here's a look at the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. Again, you can see that Delta is coming off the Yucatan Peninsula right now as we speak. It was weakened by moving over land over the course of the last 12 to 24 hours as it crossed the peninsula. Though right now it is still a hurricane, and there are the first little signs to show that it may be starting to strengthen or will strengthen over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours as it moves further into the Gulf of Mexico and then works its way into the northern portions of the Gulf on Friday. So even though, as I mentioned, there are just a little bit of uncertainty there, again, if you are in any of the areas that are pink or yellow on that map, which, as the governor stated, is pretty much the entire Louisiana coastline, you are at risk. And you do not have to be inside the cone to see those impacts. The possibility of the winds to spread out almost 100 miles from the center. So you could see tropical storm force winds 100 miles or more from the center of this storm. So even if the storm were to make landfall somewhere in the center of our coastline, it is possible that folks both in Lake Charles and New Orleans may see tropical storm force winds. So I want you to understand the breadth of the spread of the winds with this system that is possible as we move from Friday into Saturday. So current the watches that are out right now, you can see everywhere in the purple is the hurricane watch, which covers most of a little bit of southeastern portions of the state, working its way back across the central coast and even towards the far western portions of the coastline for the state of Louisiana towards the state line with Texas. The southeastern portion of the state is currently in a tropical storm watch. Now, even though that you may feel like you're just over in the area there in the pink, does not mean that you are safe and sound. The possibility still of tropical storm force winds in the range of 50 or 60 miles per hour can take down trees, large limbs, knock out power, and cause all sorts of problems there as well. So again, some of these impacts are going to be seen wide-reaching away from the center of the storm. And so if you are in any of these areas listed there, you should be preparing for significant winds. And then if you're along the coast, you should be preparing for a significant surge. I'll talk a little bit more about the surge here in just a second. The one last thing I want to mention about the winds is when the earliest reasonable time that we could see these winds. Now, if this storm were to speed up just a little bit, it's possible that sometime later tomorrow evening, the first signs of the tropical storm force winds may reach the coast. But the most likely time of such an event is going to be on Friday morning. So, as the governor mentioned, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and have all preparations and plans and be in place as we get to sunset tomorrow evening. And then that way you'll make sure that you have everything done before the onset of any of the tropical storm force winds reaches the area. I mentioned earlier about the storm surge. Those warnings and watches are out right now. Everywhere you see in the blue color right now is in a storm surge watch. In those areas, it's possible that you could see dangerous surge. I'll show a map here in just a second that highlights some of the heights that the water may come in at the surge. And the biggest area right now is basically centered right around maybe Vermilion Bay over towards Port Fourchon, where 7 to 11 feet is possible. Anything over 9 feet is well in the range of life-threatening. You're talking about anything that's a one-story building being completely inundated with water. Understand this also does not take into account any wave action. So if you do have interest on the coast and you have something elevated at 10 or 11 feet, understand that the wave action could be a couple of feet higher above that and still cause even more damage at a level higher. So this is something that may change a little bit depending on the intensity of Delta as it comes on shore. It may also change as with respect to how broad that wind field gets that I mentioned earlier. The broader the wind field, the farther reaching impacts of surge will be seen. And you can see there's even surge working its way east of the Mississippi, Lake Bourne, 4 to 6 feet, into the tidal lakes, Lake Pontchartrain, Maurepas, 3 to 5. So there's definitely going to be coastal flooding even well away from the center, which again, I try to highlight the same statement here again. You do not have to be in that cone or along that center line to see significant impacts from Hurricane Delta. The timing of this surge will start coming in tomorrow night with a peak sometime on Friday. And then understand during that time frame, as you get through high tide, it may be just a little bit higher than that with that extra little tidal influence. Rainfall is not the biggest threat with this system because it is moving fairly quickly. When it comes on shore, it may be moving anywhere from 15 or greater miles per hour across the state. With that, rainfall amounts may be a little bit limited, but still we could see on aerial average in the heaviest bands 4 to 6, maybe 6 to 8 inches of rainfall, locally higher amounts. That's more than enough rain if it happens in a very short time to create flash flooding, river flooding, and become a significant issue if anyone would dare try to travel in such conditions, which again, I say this almost every time that we've been doing these over the last few weeks. It's probably one of the most dangerous things you can do if you're getting heavy rain and flooding, if you think that you're going to get out in a vehicle and try to move around, especially at night. You have no idea how deep that water is, how fast that water is moving, and if you're trying to drive over a bridge, a culvert, or anything like that, it's possible that that bridge or culvert that you're looking for may not even be there depending on the force of the water. Everybody needs to make sure that they respect the power of water. And we have a phrase at the Weather Service that I'll use right now, the turn around, don't drown. If you see water ponding from this event, just do not drive into it. Turn around, find a different way. Make sure that you're putting yourself and your family, whoever may be in the vehicle, in the best possible position to get where you want to go and avoid driving through that high water. So some key takeaways as we finish up our discussion here about Hurricane Delta. It's definitely going to bring impacts to the state of Louisiana. I don't believe that there's any uncertainty about that. All the models show it making landfall somewhere along our coastlines. So again, if you are in one of the watch areas right now, understand that you are at risk. You need to make preparations, and your window for that will close sometime during the evening tomorrow so that you can get that all done within a safe time frame. The key things that we'll be watching for when it comes with the actual forecast is two things at this point. Since we feel pretty good about where the track is going to be, which is somewhere along the coastline in Louisiana, we're going to watch two things. One, when is it going to start to make that turn to the north? And how strong is it going to be when it gets to that point? The second thing that we'll watch at that point moving on is when it starts to start north, how soon will it start to drift a little bit to the northeast? So this is why we tell everybody, again, like we started off with and what the governor mentioned as well, is don't get completely fixated on the cone. A lot of times these things can move outside the cone. A recent example would have been just a couple weeks ago with Sally. Right now at this time frame, when we were forecasting Sally, there was still lots of impacts to be expected in southeast Louisiana. Within 24 to 36 hours of landfall, that center line had shifted all the way over to Mobile and towards Pensacola. So if you are on the eastern side of this system, and that is usually the way that these things air, you still need to make sure that you're paying attention, staying aware, and have a plan in place to do what you need to do if that track shifts. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions that anyone may have. Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. You said that usually if they're going to shift outside of the zone, they usually go to the east side.
Yes. Yeah, an eastern shift is the more usual one, especially in this setup, because it's already wanting to start the trend to the northeast as it works its way into and through the state.
Is there a time frame where it's sort of at that point it's usually locked in what the path is and how many hours in advance do you feel extremely confident that the path is locked in?
Well, the unfortunate reality is meteorology is an imperfect science. So I can't tell you exactly when that point is going to be where it's going to make the turn to the northeast, which is why I say that if you are currently right now on the eastern side of that cone or on the edge of that cone or even just outside of it, you probably should go ahead and still pay very close attention of what's going on here. There is no certainty that it will not do that. And if for anyone who wants to get so locked into what's happening right at the center point of the forecast and not realize that there is the possibility that it could air to the east, you're putting yourself possibly at risk because, again, This is something that we see over and over again with a lot of storms, especially this time of year, that once they start to turn to the northeast, they may drag a little bit more that direction than they normally would.
Wes Smaller with the Louisiana Governor. Can you tell how long is it expected to linger after first landfall?
So one of the saving graces with Delta is that it's going to be a fast-moving storm. So with its speed right now, as it makes landfall and moves through the state, somewhere maybe even greater than 15 miles per hour, we may only see impacts for a window of about 12 to maybe 15 hours before it works its way through. So if you are in the worst part of this system, understand there's going to be that 6 to 12 hour period where it could be very, very bad. And the actual impacts themselves will last, again, like I mentioned, probably for about 12 to 15, maybe 18-hour period at most before it works its way out of the state and into either Mississippi or towards the Tennessee Valley.
And during Laura, even the day ahead, you said there was virtually it had no breaks. There was virtually no chance that it would weaken. Is there anything that could dissipate this? I mean, what are the chances that anything could happen to slow this from weakening?
So there is the possibility that as Delta works its way towards the coast, it could be impacted by a little bit of wind shear. That wind shear will probably be the number one thing that may help weaken it as it approaches the coast. So it's possible that it could end up being a Cat 2 at landfall. But we tell everybody for every single storm, because there is an air of about 10 to 15 miles per hour for every storm, that you need to go ahead and prepare that it's going to be one category higher. So even if it were to weaken to that point, the wind damage still would be extensive. The surge would still be at the same levels. The rainfall would be at the same levels. All the threats would still be there. The difference of 5 or 10 miles per hour for any individual safety is not enough to think that this is going to be something that is so noticeable. No one's going to notice the difference really between 100-mile-per-hour winds and 110-mile-per-hour winds. They're going to knock down trees, power lines are coming down, it's going to do significant damage. So just because it's a Category 2 or a Category 3, you're not going to be able to walk outside after this and be able to tell the difference no matter either way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So the bottom line is stay weather aware. Pay attention to the National Weather Service, the Weather Channel, your local news sources. There are several mandatory evacuations outside of levee protection systems, and there are also numerous voluntary evacuations that are in place. And I expect that more may develop over the coming day or so. So please continue to pay attention to the directions given by your local officials. I can tell you that there are those voluntary and mandatory evacuations exist in the following parishes. And by the way, all of these will have office closures for tomorrow as well. Acadia, Assumption, Beauregard, Calcasieu, Lafayette, Lafourche, St. Martin, and St. Mary. And in Jefferson Parish, the town of Grand Isle, Cameron, Iberia, Jeff Davis, and Vermilion parishes. I can tell you that state offices will be closed statewide on Friday. We know that already, and obviously they'll be closed Saturday and Sunday as well. We will reassess on Sunday afternoon about whether there is a need to continue office closures on Monday. The Department of Corrections is assisting and helping to coordinate the evacuation of a number of parish prisons located in coastal Louisiana and had not returned all of the inmates that had been evacuated for Laura. But at the end of the day, there will be several thousand inmates who will be evacuated out of coastal Louisiana and to prisons further to the north. Obviously, storm surge is a very big concern with this storm. along most of the coast, as you saw. The CPRA is tracking 689 gates across the coastal zone, and as of this morning, 229 were closed. CPRA has numerous missions currently underway in Jefferson Parish, primarily in the Grand Isle area, but also in St. Mary and Terrebonne parishes. The National Guard has more than 1,300 guardsmen activated in support of emergency operations, and they have pre-positioned 114 high-water vehicles, 56 boats, and 8 aircraft to provide search and rescue support. And they have an additional 16 aircraft on standby. Additionally, the National Guard has already delivered 90 super sacks to Grand Isle. I'm sorry, they delivered 90 yesterday to Grand Isle, an additional 260 to be delivered today in order to shore up the Gulf Side levee, the South Side levee of Grand Isle. The incident support team is operational with 28 state members and 35 members from FEMA who will be joining our operations. The State Fire Marshal urban search and rescue equipment is prepared and staged, and this is a multifaceted approach. The primary state assets and personnel come from the Fire Marshal's Office and Wildlife and Fisheries. That includes 193 people in total, but out-of-state requests have been made through the EMAC system, and there are about 165 individuals coming in from South Carolina, Kansas, Tennessee, and Oklahoma to be pre-positioned. And then there are another 140 or so federal personnel for search and rescue that we're working through FEMA. Altogether, more than 560 search and rescue responders with the appropriate equipment who are specialized in search and rescue when you have high water and structural collapse. I can tell you that 7,500 utility crew members will be staged in the state pre-landfall, with an additional 8,300 ready to be called in. And just to be clear, and it shouldn't be necessary, there is no COVID regulation or order issued by me or anyone else that would prevent contractors or utility crews or insurance adjusters or anybody else from coming into Louisiana, whether it's to help restore power or to help with any other response effort that we'll be making or recovery effort out there. And obviously that was a false rumor that gained some currency on social media after Laura, and I thought I would just address that in advance. Let us not forget that Southwest Louisiana is still recovering from Hurricane Laura. There are still a lot of structures with significant damage. While power has been restored to just about everybody outside of Cameron Parish, we know that they don't have the redundancy there that they would like to have. We also know that there remains, despite tremendous efforts by locals and by the state, there still remains a lot of debris. And so as strong winds impact that area, that debris can be transformed into missiles. And so we have to be very careful with that. And I'm very concerned that the 5 hardest hit parishes from Laura in southwest Louisiana are in the cone, and with the westward movement of the track. Again, the storm can come in anywhere in the cone. It can come in outside the cone, but obviously we would not want, and of course you don't want the hurricane to hit anywhere, but we know that the area that is least prepared and ready for a storm happens to be southwest Louisiana. So we have to pay very careful attention to that, and everybody needs to pay attention to their local elected officials, but that is especially the case in southwest Louisiana. To date, because of Laura, FEMA has put nearly $157 million in the hands of survivors. Almost $107 million of that is for housing assistance, and $50 million is for other needs assistance. And FEMA has registered more than 180,000 households. Additionally, the Small Business Administration has approved $243 million in low-interest loans to help Louisiana hurricane survivors recover. And you can go to disasterloanassistance.sba.gov, or you can call 800-659-2955 for more information about those Small Business Administration loans. Got an update on assessments from FEMA, damage assessments with respect to homes today. With respect to Laura, that's 58,000 homes with minor damage, about 38,000 with moderate damage, 35,000 with major damage, and over 10,000 completely destroyed. So those are the numbers that we currently have. And so this is the reality that many homeowners are facing as we prepare for Delta. Obviously not a very good situation. We still have many people affected by Hurricane Laura who are sheltering in hotel rooms. As of this morning, 6,038 of them were in Louisiana hotels. About 2,000 or so are in Texas. Because of the hurricane, we've stopped moving people back from home from the shelter, and we won't commence that again until it is safe to do so, and we are sure that the home that we're going to be sending these people to is suitable for them to return to. And the movement back from the hotel shelters has been discontinued both in Louisiana and in Texas. Anyone needing shelter from Hurricane Delta should follow the guidance of local officials and their local Office of Emergency Preparedness. For shelter information, you can always text LA Shelter to 898-211. LA Shelter to 898-211. The Department of Health continues to monitor healthcare resources across the state. Held a statewide call yesterday with all regions and stakeholders to ensure readiness for storm impacts, with a particular emphasis on hospitals and nursing homes in at-risk areas. For everyone out there, if you believe that you may need to use a generator, and we don't know who you are because we don't know where the power is going to go out, but we can expect power outages, we do want to remind people that a number of deaths after Laura were caused because of unsafe operation of generators. So in advance, please make sure that you position that generator at least 20 feet from your home in a well-ventilated area, not underneath a window or a vent, not in a crawl space or a garage, and certainly not in your home. And when you're going to fill the generator with fuel, please turn it off. Make sure that it cools down for about 20 minutes before you do that. Please have a carbon monoxide detector with fresh batteries as well, because we had at least 9 individuals who died of carbon monoxide poisoning. The Calcasieu Parish Health Unit will be suspending some operations, including COVID testing, tomorrow. And on the topic of COVID, I do want to point out that today's numbers include a fairly large backlog of both cases and tests. I'll get to that. We are reporting 1,052 new cases. 432 of those were backlogged. And we are also reporting 23,032 new tests. 7,838 of those were backlogged. So if you wanted a report today that really looks at what's been happening here very recently, we would have reported 620 cases on 15,644 tests. Sadly, again today, we were reporting new deaths, this time 9 new deaths. Also today, there's a little bit of good news. After 2 days of increasing hospitalizations, we saw a decrease today. So there are 552 statewide COVID-19 hospitalizations that we're reporting, which is down from 567. So that's down 15. Unfortunately, we have 7 additional patients on ventilators today than yesterday. There are 78 on ventilators today in our report, and 71 is what we reported yesterday. Now, I know that what we just went through is a lot of information, and it relates to Delta, it relates to Laura, it relates to COVID, and that's a good segue into the fact that as we continue to prepare for and anticipate responding to Hurricane Delta, we're doing it in a public health emergency. Quite frankly, the fact that we have not seen a surge in Louisiana, when you look at what happened around Labor Day, with the resumption of K through 12 schools, higher education campuses reopening, Labor Day weekend itself, and Hurricane Laura, that only happened and I should say the surge didn't happen because of the degree to which people are following the mitigation measures and restrictions that are in place. They remain critically important because one thing we know about Hurricane Delta, there's going to be some period of time where we're not going to be testing as robustly as we would want to. And we always hate when that happens because you lose visibility into what the virus is doing for some period of time. And so we are asking everyone to make sure that you wear your mask when you're not with people of the immediate household. Physically distance at least 6 feet from those individuals. Make sure that you wash your hands frequently, stay home when you're sick, and let's really make sure that we're protecting the vulnerable. Those 65 and older or have those pre-existing comorbid health conditions that we've been talking about for so long. I would encourage everyone when they wake up tomorrow to pretty quickly become weather aware, because one of the key things that we have to figure out is what is Hurricane Delta going to do as it enters the Gulf and comes off the land of the Yucatan Peninsula. Does that wind field get larger? How quickly does it strengthen? What adjustments do they make to the track? And so all of those things will be figured out by the National Weather Service and Hurricane Center tonight. Much of that information should be available to us early tomorrow, but all day tomorrow we have to continue to track the storm. And so I'll let people decide whether tomorrow morning they say a prayer before they check the weather or they check the weather before they say prayer, but we all need to do both of those. So as we continue to prepare for the worst and pray for the best. With that, I'm going to take your questions for just a moment. Greg, how did I know you would be first?
Governor, does a Category 3 forecast, that doesn't trigger any mandatory evacuation?
No. Where we have evacuations like that, it's typically in southeast Louisiana in the New Orleans metro area. So we don't have any state-imposed mandatory evacuations contemplated for this storm because of where the strike is going to come, but also because of the forward speed of the storm and the fact that we don't expect it to generate as much rain. For example, I can tell you, had Sally settled over the New Orleans area and dropped the rain there that it dropped between Mobile and the Florida Panhandle, that would have been a different kind of storm. But because of the way, the particular characteristics of this storm, we do not anticipate any state-ordered, in fact, I can just tell you there won't be any state-ordered mandatory evacuations. There will be evacuation orders, mandatory and voluntary, outside protected areas. And people need to be heeding the advice of local officials on that. And we know a number of them are in place. I gave you the list a while ago, but there may be some more that develop over the next number of hours as well. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I can. Well, first of all, many of the structures haven't been permanently, the vast majority of damaged structures have not been permanently repaired. And so their structural integrity is weaker now than it was before Laura hit. That's a concern. We know that while electricity has been restored to the vast majority of customers outside of Cameron Parish, we know that they don't have the redundancy that they would like. And so if you see outages there, they're liable to be more widespread than they typically would be if they had the redundancy built in. And it could take a little longer than normal to restore that power again. We also know that there continues to be a large amount of debris on the ground, whether it's construction type debris and demolition debris, whether it's vegetation. Not all of that has been picked up yet. And while the contractor with DOTD and all the local contractors have been doing tremendous work, you just can't pick up the amount of debris that Laura left from Cameron Parish up through, I guess, Ouachita Parish in the amount of time that we've had. And so all that debris could become missiles in really strong winds. So all of that, plus just the sheer anxiety that it would cause people in advance of the storm, and the impact on people's emotional health afterwards and so forth. And I will tell you, we have a resilient, faithful people in Louisiana. We have tremendous local public servants, and the state's going to be there just as quickly as we possibly can. But make no mistake about it, if this hurricane does come in to southwest Louisiana on a track similar to what Hurricane Laura did, it will be very, very devastating, despite the fact that it's going to be a fast-moving storm. And it would do more damage there than it will elsewhere, just because the situation is so precarious there. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I apologize for not asking this earlier, but I have a question for Mr. Schott.
I am happy to yield the podium to Ben Schott.
I understand that the critical radar antenna in Lake Charles is offline and converted into water. Has that affected the accuracy of current forecasts, and will it affect any future forecasts, or is this working well?
No, it is true that the radar at Lake Charles is down, and it will be down for a significant amount of time as we're getting parts and make the repairs that need to be made to get it back up and online. We have duplicate radar coverage across the state, so there's ways to still be able to track this using the radar that's in Slidell. We have the one in Fort Polk, and so we have other radars across the area that are still be able to see this. The one thing that it will be true is that we may not be able to see at the lowest levels of the storm or what's happening as it's coming on shore, if it does come on shore there in southwest Louisiana. So that part will be true, but it will have nothing to do with either the accuracy of the forecast or the accuracy of any forecast moving ahead. What it will do is make us rely on other sensors, whether it be the radars that are surrounding, that add that coverage over the top of each other. So if you are wanting to watch what's happening in southwest Louisiana right now, that still is possible. You just won't be able to get as the lowest coverage that we would normally see. What I mean by lowest coverage is maybe the bottom 2,000 or 3,000 feet of the atmosphere. We'll be able to see everything above that using all the surrounding radars that the Weather Service has right now in place across the state.
We talked about the possibility that this thing could shift further east than y'all think right now. The people in New Orleans and Baton Rouge be more or less preparing for a hurricane right now, or would you not go that far in terms of what we're experiencing?
Well, those areas are under a tropical storm watch right now. So they need to prepare for everything that would be involved with the tropical storm hitting the area that they reside in. As it comes to whether they will see hurricane conditions, that is still up in the air, and that is the reason why, like I mentioned earlier, is that everyone needs to prepare for a storm to hit them. If you're under a watch, any type of watch, whether it be the hurricane watch or a tropical storm, you need to have that plan in place of what you would do in the situation if you see those worsening conditions are going to hit your area. As for the exact forecast, right now, unfortunately, I can't tell you. No one can tell you. But what I can give you is what the National Hurricane Center has put out. I can say that these are the areas of the greatest concern. And for those of anyone who's in any kind of watch, again, whether it be the hurricane or the tropical storm watch, that you need to be prepared and you need to stay aware. And you can't let your guard down thinking that, it's only a tropical storm. Lots of deaths happen, unfortunately, in tropical storms because of that. People put their guard down because they're not under the hurricane or they've been through this before. There's plenty of threats there that could be life-threatening. You don't have to be along the coast. It doesn't have to be the surge. It could be trees falling on cars. It could be issues, as the governor mentioned, with power going out and people incorrectly hooking up their generators. So there's still lots of different threats out there just because you're not maybe in the strongest portion of the hurricane.
Thanks, Ben. And I would illustrate what Ben just said with an example from as recently as a couple of weeks ago. And this is not the forecast, so I'm not trying to scare anybody, but we came in here on a Sunday afternoon 2 weeks ago, or thereabouts. Time gets away from me these days. And we were talking about how Sally was taking an aim at southeast Louisiana. 48 hours later, it made a direct impact over east of Mobile in the Gulf Shores and Florida Panhandle. If that same type of movement happens over the next 48 hours and that storm moves to the east, then you're talking about southeast Louisiana again, right? And so that's why we're trying to tell everybody to be weather aware. Nobody should look at the current forecast and say, oh, it didn't come in for me. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay any attention. Everybody has to pay attention. Everybody has to get prepared. And certainly that needs to happen to, I guess, maybe a greater degree for those people who are in the forecast. But everybody needs to be paying attention to this. Yes, sir.
Will you open any of the mega shelters in the state
Yeah.
areas or not?
Yeah, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to have a mega shelter in Alexandria that is going to be open. It's going to be staffed. In fact, it has been really since Laura, because we continued to receive, up until recently, individuals that needed shelter because of Hurricane Laura, and then we were moving them out to the hotels. So they're going to be open. Again, we don't want to engage in congregant sheltering because of COVID, and so it's going to be a processing center where, as quickly as possible, we move people from that shelter to non-congregant sheltering. And in the meantime, individuals need to pay attention to their local elected officials, because they will be talking about sheltering opportunities in those parishes if they have evacuations in place. Yes, sir.
And since the storm is moving so quickly, you're kind of confident that we're not going to see anything like the 2016 flood here in Baton Rouge or the area, because that's on everyone's mind whenever it starts to rain.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on that?
Well, all I can tell you is that the rainfall totals that Ben went through don't even approach what we received either in March or in August of 2016. It is possible that certain areas will be under a band of rain for longer than other areas, and the isolated area amounts could be double what he gave, but even that doesn't approach the 2016. So the only redeeming quality about Delta is its forward speed. And so I'm going to be praying that we don't have a direct hit in southwest Louisiana, and that the storm move through our area just as quickly as possible and degrade and weaken as quickly as possible. So that's going to be my prayers going into this storm, just to see if I can get other people on board. Okay, tomorrow we intend to come back with a press conference at 3 o'clock. I will be having a UCG meeting tomorrow morning. We will have more information for you at that time, I am sure. And again, everyone, please be weather aware. Get yourself and your family prepared. Understand that you should anticipate the first 72 hours is on you. We're going to get there just as soon as we possibly can, and certainly your local local government officials will be making sure that they do that as well. And then let's make sure that we get through this as best as possible. Again, let's prepare for the worst, pray for the best. We will see you at 3 o'clock.